1340 WJOL presents A Rich Conversation with Rich Rennick. No politics, no controversy. Just the lively art of conversation about interesting people in our world. Here's Rich Rennick.
As our day continues, remember that no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome to A Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Rennick. And our guest today, well, just listen to this.
Whoa, if I could talk to the animals, just imagine it, chatting with a chimpanzee. Imagine talking to a tiger, chatting with a cheetah. What a neat achievement it would be.
Well, he can't talk to the animals. Well, not directly anyway, but I think he does understand what they're saying. He is Dr. Michael Adkesson. He is the president and the CEO of the Chicago Zoological Society and the director of Brookfield Zoo. And Dr. Mike, I can't thank you enough for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Delighted.
Yeah, well, like I said, you can't talk to the animals, but in a way, you've been doing that pretty much your entire life.
Very true, very true.
You know, and congratulations, of course. It's a little late, but for the last 2 years, you've had the position of president and the CEO of the Chicago Zoological Society. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
First of all, Dr. Mike, can you tell me just a little bit difference? Because there are those who think that the Chicago Zoological Society and Brookfield Zoo are two different entities. Is that true?
They are pretty much one and the same. So the Chicago Zoological Society operates and manages Brookfield Zoo, which exists on property owned by the Cook County Forest Preserves.
How does that work? Is there a lease arrangement with the Forest Preserve?
Essentially, yeah. So it dates all the way back to the founding of the society and the zoo opening. So the society was founded back in the 1920s with the task of developing a world-class zoo for Chicago, featuring a more modern zoological design with, at the time, what was very, state-of-the-art revolutionary with these sort of open-air grottos and moated exhibits where you were not looking at animals behind bars. And so over the course of a 12-year period, the society developed the plans for what would become Brookfield Zoo on property that was part of the Forest Preserves of Cook County. The zoo's property specifically was actually a gift to the Forest Preserves from Edith Rockefeller McCormick. So some incredible history there that dates back almost 100 years as we come up on our centennial in 2034.
Now, I've done my research, and I think you're going to be very impressed with this. My idea of the zoo, you get a bunch of animals, you get some land, you get a habitat, you put a gate up, and then you sell tickets, and that's pretty much it. That's all that goes into it. Is that pretty much, did I nail that one, do you think?
That's certainly the simple view in which zoos were, founded and dating back, a century. But today, all of our education, community outreach programming, our conservation efforts around the world, our science and animal care and welfare, all of these other components are a huge piece of what we do today.
Brookfield Zoo is just a remarkable place. Having been there as a child many years ago and having the opportunity of taking my kids there and now our grandkids there, it's a remarkable organization. And as members, we're so proud to take our friends and relatives who come in to visit us over to Brookfield Zoo, and it's just a remarkable place to be. It's just a diamond in our own backyard. In addition to having a great place to go for families and friends to just enjoy a day out, the programs that you offer are just incredible.
It's an incredible organization, and thank you for those kind words. Certainly holds a dear place in the heart of so many people around Chicago as well as around the world, and just a rich history of innovation and advancement in terms of science and education programming. We have an incredible team of staff that lead these programs that focus on everything from early childhood education, just getting kids out and exposed to nature and helping to foster that connection to the world around us, to community programs that reach out into underserved areas with science education and teacher training programs, We have evening lectures that, run the gamut all the way up to advanced science level of conversation. We have very, very robust science programs that are focused around understanding the needs of our animals, how to best care for them, provide the state-of-the-art medical and health care that we give them, look after both their physical needs as well as their psychological needs. And then, obviously our conservation programs really around the world is just a core piece of what we do today. Really being a place for the animals to have a voice, kind of back to the initial comments you made at the start of the interview. These animals can't talk, but the stories that they can tell as far as the threats they face in the wild and the need for protection and saving these animals is a huge part of what we do. So that comes in the form of maintaining sustainable populations of animals within zoos that provide an opportunity for re-release programs back out into the wild, or head starting programs where young animals are reared for release back into the wild, out in the field looking at what threats are affecting wildlife and what we can do to protect them in terms of conservation strategies and education programs and outreach within their natural ranges.
Now, your background, Dr. Mike, you go back to having been a zookeeper back in Decatur,
Yes.
Illinois. So
Yeah.
your interest in this started. What was the impetus to get you started into the idea of getting to know something more about animals and being a part of the conservation efforts?
Yeah, so I started out in a youth volunteer program myself at Scoville Zoo in Decatur, Illinois. So a small hometown zoo. To this day, I don't think my mom and I totally agree on whether I showed an interest in it or she just signed me up for it to get me out of the house a couple afternoons a week. But either way, it stuck at about the age of 8 that, I went through these youth volunteer programs every summer until I aged out of them. I ended up with a part-time zookeeper job all the way through undergrad and college, and then transitioned into veterinary medicine for my graduate studies. But, I was one of those people that when we talk about the impact that zoos can have, I am one of those poster children that got hooked very early on wildlife and the need to conserve and protect animals in our natural habitats around the world. And it's just gone up from there.
My guess is that the role of zookeeper has changed quite a bit.
That has evolved over time into what we refer to today as our animal care specialists. So these are the folks that have an incredible background in understanding the needs of the animals they care for, monitoring animal behavior, managing complex breeding programs to make sure that we're maintaining genetic diversity within our zoo-based populations. They are our frontline staff engaging with our guests on a daily basis to educate and teach them about different animals and different conservation efforts around the world. Many times they're involved in those conservation programs themselves, either as a voice and a mouthpiece for conservation or in some cases actually being the ones out in the field doing the work.
Dr. Mike, every time that we go to the zoo, I am always amazed at the number of animals. How many species would you estimate exist at Brookfield Zoo?
Yeah, so that definitely varies over time. Generally, over about 500 different species here at the zoo represent about 3,000 different animals. It depends a little bit where we kind of draw that line and how we look at some of the corals and sea anemones and things like that, where individual animal counts get a little bit tougher. But just as a general rule of thumb, about 3,000 animals here at the zoo that we take care of every day.
And the care that each one requires is so specific to that species. How are the people who care for these animals selected?
Yeah, so a lot of different career paths and a lot of different backgrounds behind our animal care staff. Many of them went to school to be an animal care staff member. Their background is in animal science or in zoology. But we also have those that came about it by a little less traditional path, that may have gone to school with an education focus or went to school with natural history or natural resources background that just sort of ended up looking at a direction of a career that led them to the zoo. That diversity is a great thing for us. It really allows our care staff to have different strengths and different areas of expertise, and a diversity of thought is a wonderful thing when it comes to advancing our programs.
Yeah. And when I run across any of the folks out there to talk about the animals from the zoo's perspective, you can tell there's a passion there. There's an absolute passion with each one of the people who's explaining the animals to the guests. There's a true passion there and a love for what it is that they do.
Yeah, it's incredible. They are some of the most dedicated people that I have ever had the joy to work with. Their individual connection to the animals is incredible. The trust that exists between that care staff and individual animals is amazing to see. The work that they can do with animals to help us take good care of them. When we talk about some of our dolphins or our gorillas, big cats, many of these animals are trained to allow our care staff to really maximize the quality of the care we provide. So, for instance, our gorillas are trained to allow a stethoscope to be placed on their chest through the mesh. They're allowed to potentially have an ultrasound probe placed on them. They're allowed to put a blood pressure cuff on them to measure their blood pressure, open their mouth to allow their teeth to be brushed, all of these different things that allow us to really provide the absolute highest level of care that we can for these animals. In many ways, they better health care than many people do. And, no insurance and no copays and no deductibles on top of it.
You're listening to A Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Rennick. My guest today is the president and the CEO of the Chicago Zoological Society, Dr. Michael Adkesson. And one of my fondest memories, Dr. Mike, was going to the zoo as a young child with my parents. This goes back 70 years ago, and seeing Cookie. Remember Cookie, the cockatiel? And then taking my children there and seeing Cookie. And for a little bit, young grandchild, Cookie. Wasn't that bird like really old?
He was, yeah. So he was here the day the zoo opened. Came in as an adult. So right around late '80s, early '90s in age when he finally passed away. But an incredible animal. I had the joy of working with him in my previous role here as a veterinarian. Definitely kind of the stereotypical kind of cranky grandpa at the end of his life. But had a great relationship with the staff that took care of him every day. Didn't always have a lot of love for the veterinarians, but just a wonderful animal, and really goes to show the quality of the care we provide, and that allows these animals to live such incredibly long lives, far longer than they would be able to live in the wild. And really just such a neat story and a neat opportunity to see that animal impact the lives of so many people over multiple generations.
Yeah, and the memories that he
missed.
created. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other memory I have too, Dr. Mike, is the machines there where you put your little money in there and you can watch the molded animal come out.
The Mold-O-Ramas. Yeah.
And they're still there. I love them.
They are. And that the smell of that melted plastic is a trigger for so many people. You see them out in the park, and you can just see heads turn when that plastic smell kind of starts to permeate the air.
Oh, I'd rather stand around one of those and go into a bakery sometimes. It just the memories. Now, as members of Brookfield Zoo, we get the magazine Gateways. And after looking at the cover, my wife, Barbara, she said, you got to get in touch with somebody from the zoo to talk about it because it's such a fascinating place. And that brought me to getting in contact with you. And the cover was Meet Jantu, the gorilla family leader. Now, there's a story unto itself. Talk about that.
Yeah, so incredible animal. I actually had the joy of working with him when I was doing my veterinary residency at the St. Louis Zoo. So it was a little bit of a reconnection for me when Jantu came up here. But we had unfortunately had to say goodbye to Jojo, our silverback gorilla, last year. And Jantu was identified as a good match for our females here at the zoo, and was recommended by the Species Survival Program to move up here to Chicago. So Jantu has taken over the role of silverback and patriarch of our gorilla troop, and just a wonderful animal, beautiful gorilla, wonderful demeanor, very just calm and gentle, and a good stabilizing leader of our gorilla troop. And we are so excited to be working right now on tropical forests, which is our new outdoor habitats for our gorillas, orangutans, and monkeys. That'll be opening up in the spring of 2025. But there's a giant construction crane taking up the West Mall right now here at the zoo, and the West Mall has been completely tore up with a lot of the foundations going in right now, and we're delighted to have this project moving forward. It's a $66 million project. It'll be the biggest project the zoo's undertaken, and it'll be about 2 acres worth of space being turned back over to our animals to provide these rich, immersive outdoor habitats. And just can't wait to watch John to lead our group of gorillas out into these new spaces. It will be the first time that many of our gorillas have ever been outside, that they've ever, felt the sun on their face or the grass under their feet. So it will be a very emotional experience for all of us.
And Dr. Mike, can you talk a little bit about what the process is of all of the different species you have when it comes time to move an animal out to a different habitat or a different zoo location for purposes of mating? Yeah. What is the science that goes on in making that match occur?
Yeah, so a lot of solid science behind that. There's what we call species survival programs, which are components that make up sort of the recommendations around these different moves. And that's a program from the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, or AZA, which is our main professional organization for zoos around the world. And the population scientists look at relatedness of individual animals to make those assessments as far as which animals should be moved to which facilities. And the goal is always to maintain as much genetic diversity within the population as possible. Obviously, the animals also have to be compatible. The animals also have to have an interest in one another for that reproduction to take place. So there are other factors that influence into it. But by and large, the goal is to always maintain that genetic diversity to the highest level that we can. For so many of the animals that we have in zoos, our populations represent significant number of the animals that are left in the world. And when we talk about some of our most endangered animals here at Brookfield Zoo, we're part of a zoo-based population that in some instances exceeds what's even left in the wild. So very important for us to try and keep that genetic diversity as healthy as possible.
Your relationship with having known John too from the previous location and said that he would be a good replacement for Jojo. What were the key elements in making that decision? Was it genetic? Was it health? I mean, there's no dating service to call for matching up. What do you do? How do you do that?
Yeah, so, several different factors really play into that. The genetic match with our animals is a part of it. The proximity from St. Louis to Chicago, recognizing that it's, easier to move a gorilla a few hundred miles than it is to move one 1,000 miles, factors into that a little bit. And then just the compatibility and sort of the assessment of how they thought he would do stepping into kind of that silverback role. He had been part of a bachelor troop at St. Louis, so he was housed with just other male gorillas, and that's really a great way to help manage the population of gorillas in zoos. Obviously, every other one born is, statistically going to be a male, and in the wild, those young males would, leave their troop and go out on their own and maybe pair up with one or two other animals. And so these bachelor troops have been very successful at sort of maintaining the male population of gorillas. And it's also a chance for them to learn how to be a gorilla, how to develop into a good, strong silverback. And so he was sort of at the right age where moving him into a group of females as the silverback made sense and was a good fit.
They're just amazing to watch, too. Just to stand there, you can be mesmerized just by their actions and how they look at the guests who are looking at them, and you can see a lot of thought process going on.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're so excited about with these new habitats, too, is the viewing of the animals in these habitats is going to be behind these large glass windows that will allow our guests to really get up close to the animals in a way that they've never been able to before. So our Tropic World facility is 40 years old, which is hard to believe, but it was just not an element of zoo design at the time. And so this is going to be a experience like no other for our guests to really be able to come in and get kind of nose to nose with these animals.
And one of the things I hear frequently when I go to the zoo with our family, friends, and our grandkids is, where are the elephants?
Yeah, that is a big topic that we're discussing as part of our master planning efforts. So right now we are smack dab in the middle of a master plan development process that will map out a course for the zoo over the next 15 years that will lead us through our centennial celebration in 2034, and really looking at not only what our programs will consist of and look like, but also what the physical campus of the zoo will become. And so really focusing in on redevelopment of large portions of the property, upgrading facilities, adding new outdoor habitats, taking advantage of the land that we have to develop even more open and naturalistic habitats for our animals. Obviously, our pachyderm building as it exists right now was built back in the 1920s and is just not able to provide the level of care that we would need to provide to maintain elephants the way we would want to do that today. So if we do get back into elephants, it would be looking at them in a brand new section of the zoo that would provide them acres and acres of space and would provide them the opportunity to live a very natural life, very similar to what they would experience in the wild. So, but I think when the master plan comes out, it's going to be a real source of inspiration and something that people are very excited about what the future of the zoo holds.
All right, Dr. Mike, now just for clarification, is there any link between Brookfield Zoo, Lincoln Park Zoo, and the Shedd Aquarium?
Yeah, so we're actually two completely distinct organizations and also completely distinct from Shedd Aquarium. All three are independent organizations that operate independently, but I would say there's a tremendous amount of synergy between us, great professional relationships amongst our staff, and really an effort to join programs together where we can. We're all in the same business, and that business is, conservation education and animal care. And so we are very fortunate in many ways to live in a metropolitan area where we've got three just wonderful organizations focused on those same goals.
And I find it inspiring to know that when you're focused on the same goals, your community globally all comes together.
Sure is. It's really just such a wonderful profession to be part of. Zoos across the globe all share the same mission. We all share the same focus of conserving and protecting animals and wildlife and wild places, and tremendous amounts of collaboration between zoos and aquariums to advance ourselves towards those goals. So feel very fortunate to have such great colleagues around the world.
Oh, yeah. Now, Dr. Mike, I've got to ask you, does Brookfield Zoo have its own police department?
That is true. We do, yes. So our connection with the Forest Preserves of Cook County provides that opportunity. So we do maintain our own police force, and it's really a great asset to us in terms of keeping the park and the zoo safe for our guests.
Now, there's a new baby that you wanted to chat about.
Well, we've got a baby squirrel monkey, which we've been very excited to see here at the zoo, and we are delighted to have her. We've got a number of other new babies here at the zoo, and are also looking forward to a new giraffe joining us here shortly, sometime later this month. After a 14-month pregnancy, we will be hopefully having a young, healthy giraffe here on the ground sometime very soon.
How exciting is that? Do the employees in the area have a celebration when the birth occurs?
We do, yes. Definitely a celebration across the zoo for major births like that. There's also a baby pool for bragging rights going on right now amongst our staff on when that delivery date is going to be. So far, I'm still in the running on that one, so we'll count that as a good thing. But we'll see when the little one decides to join us.
Now, Dr. Mike, you've been in the role for about 2 years now. What is your vision for Brookfield Zoo?
Well, we have such an incredible gift in terms of space and land here. Over 235 acres of space. Only a portion of that is currently developed right now into animal habitats. So as we look at this new master plan, we have such a tapestry to work with in terms of space for new habitats and new experiences. So really focusing in around that development and that 10 to 15-year vision. What we're working on right now with a lot of earnestness is to map out what that zoo will look like and then, charting out the strategic steps that will get us there. And then really growth of our conservation programs and our education programs so that we are truly making an impact in as many different ways as possible to conserve wildlife around the globe. We have incredible programs that we operate. We talked about some of those earlier, but we don't always do that in a way that the public sees it. And so really leaning into that and telling that story, whether it's conservation of dolphins down in Florida or it's conservation of box turtles here in the Chicagoland area, our programs have a true impact on the conservation of these species and really finding the way to tell that story effectively so that our general public understands the role that zoos play in society today and the impact that we can really have.
Now, Dr. Mike, to stimulate a young person who wishes to pursue the career path that you did, are there internships available?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a wide variety of programs that really span all ages. So kids can start out here at a preschool level with our seedlings classes that are just aimed at helping kids to make those first connections with animals and nature. Those follow all the way up through our King Conservation Scholars, which is a program focused at high school students, teaches them conservation, teaches them science, and also just career and college readiness skills. Wonderful program and really a great way for teens to get involved. We do offer internships in numerous different areas around the zoo, not just our animal care programs, but everything from marketing to finance from an internship standpoint. And then we have a number of different postgraduate opportunities as well. So very active program around veterinary education for veterinary students and veterinarians looking to specialize in zoo or wildlife medicine. We have fellowship opportunities available and just really a great way for professional students to continue their education in a zoo-based setting.
And of course, where do we go if we want to get more information?
So that website is CZS, ChicagoZoologicalSociety.org.
Well, Dr. Michael Adkesson, the president and CEO of the Chicago Zoological Society, I can't thank you enough for being here and enlightening us on what goes on behind the scenes. So thank you once again for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Please mark your calendar for 1 week from today for another Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Rennick, and thank you for making us a part of your day.
Let's go to the zoo and dance like the animals do. Let's go to the zoo and dance like the animals do.